I'm coming to you from Ecuador, and we got my co-host, Heather.
Yes, I'm over here in Seattle, still kicking it in the PNW Pacific Northwest. And today I'm so excited. My good friend Don Malbar Ray introduced me to Carly Romeo, who is the director of Feminist Camp. It's a badass outfit that promotes feminist work, activism, and what I find most interesting, action that inspires people to work in this field. So Carly, I'm going to kick it over to you. What's up, girl? Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey from the East Coast.
Yes.
I'm in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm Carly Romeo. I run Feminist Camp. Like y'all were saying, it's a kind of hard to define conference-ish experience, basically for anybody who has an interest in feminism and is trying to answer questions for themselves, like, how do I incorporate my feminism into my daily life after college? Or like, how do I pay my bills and do feminist stuff, which is a big question. And I also do wedding photography, actually, feminist wedding photography. And I'm the co-founder of a feminist wedding magazine. So I have a lot of different feminist-related projects going on right now.
I like the cross-section of art, business, and journalism.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, well, the magazine, honestly, like my two co-founders and I, Liz and Jen are my two co-founders, and we all were sort of like involved in weddings in some way, but had like a lot of what I call capital F feelings about the wedding industry, being feminist and all, and kind of like, you know, coming from this intersectional perspective and realizing that we were in like a super white, super hetero, like very homogenous industry. And we were kind of like, wait a second, like, hey, all y'all magazines, you know that like other people get married, right? So we started like getting all of our friends together and using the magazine kind of as a platform for those types of conversations. Where basically like Barbie and Ken's wedding is like cool, but we also have like all these other weddings that people need to see so that they can feel inspired for their own lives. So yeah, that's the wedding magazine part. The feminist wedding photography thing was like, I wanted to be a photographer, and weddings were really the only way, at least where I live, which is Richmond, Virginia. Weddings are really one of the only ways to make money as a photographer. So I was like, well, I guess I'll do weddings, but because I'm me, I need to do them in like a real feminist way. So I wrote this like, yeah, it was, you know, lots of love.
How do you do that?
Well, here's what I did. I was like, hey, I'm going to be a photographer. And I like practiced with a camera and learned how to do that. And then I was like, all right, so time to do weddings. And I wrote this like kind of like, you know, brief 2-minute read kind of manifesto sort of thing that was like, hey, here's why feminism is good for wedding photography. You know, like, A, I'm not going to put you in traditional gender role poses because like brides are more than just like delicate virginal flowers or whatever. And like grooms are more than just props.
Right.
And I also was writing about like being inclusive and embracing queer couples because at the time, this was like before the Supreme Court had legalized gay marriage or same-sex marriage or however we want to call it, like across the country. So I was living in Virginia where it wasn't technically legal, but I was like, hey, like it doesn't matter if you're getting legally married. If you're getting married, you're having a celebration of your love. Like I want to be part of that, and I'm not going to put you into boxes, and I'm here to like support your choices and make sure you feel like your wedding is a reflection of your partnership and not just like a whole day dedicated to kissing some bride's ass. So that's kind of like my feminist angle on it. And I wrote this article. Yeah, I wrote this article, and I swear to you that I could hear just like the rushing of tulle running away from me, like all these real traditional brides being like, nope, nope, nope.
But dodged bullets, honey.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. You know, it took me a little while. Like when I first started doing wedding photography, I Googled feminist wedding photography or feminist wedding photographer. And like nothing is eerier than Googling something and getting like 3 results. Whoa. And then that's it, you know, and there's like no other pages, no more clicks. It's just like, that's it. And in my mind, I had to go from like, oh shit, nobody's doing this, I guess it's not a thing. I had to like reframe that to nobody's doing this yet, and like I need to do it, you know?
That's awesome. Google's like, Georgia O'Keeffe?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, right. It was like one really defunct blog, and then like one person complaining about someone being too feminist at their wedding or some shit. And then like, that was it. You know how usually it's like Google with all the O's at the bottom and each O page? It just said regular Google. It was like, no, that's it.
Wasn't enough O's. We're like, we're good.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
You know what's funny? I've only ever seen that when I've completely and utterly misspelled something. Like I meant to type in like, how do I feed my dog food? And it's like, how do you, and then that's the only way I've ever seen like 3 Google results. So that's like pretty amazing.
It's creepy. I was like, something's wrong here. It's a glitch in the matrix or something, but it turned out really well.
Feedback start coming in pretty quickly, or was that something you kind of had to work at and find your audience, or were they waiting there for you?
It was so fast. Like my first cold call wedding, like my first wedding where I didn't know them or they weren't like a friend of a friend. It was this couple, 2 women. They were both in the military. They each had 2 children from previous relationships. And they were getting married in like Eastern Virginia, actually on a former Army base. And they had gotten quote unquote, legally married in, I think, Maryland or maybe DC, but they were having a wedding and it was very like white dresses and, your traditional wedding ceremony and then reception, et cetera. And one of the women emailed me and she was like, hey, I would really love to talk to you. I really want to we're trying to do this wedding and you're the only photographer that we found in the state of Virginia who has any same-sex couples on their website.
Whoa.
Yeah. I got goosebumps just reading it. I was like, I was like, no, that's not true. That can't be real. And at that point I had only shot maybe 2 or 3 weddings for friends. The same-sex photos she was talking about were like these friends of mine that I took to a Shake Shack when I lived in New York, and like we ate burgers, and I took their picture. Like it was very my friend, her girlfriend, who's now her wife. But like it was very rudimentary. Like the photos, it wasn't even a same-sex wedding. It was just like 2 same-sex people on my website, like being in love. And they were just like, we need you. And we're so relieved. That's what everybody says when they book me. They're just like, we're so relieved to find a photographer who agrees with us, like on a political level.
That's really awesome. I think too, like this is a question I have for you is kind of from an artistic perspective, how would you say that, like when someone either calls you or you kind of have a consultation and someone has searched for you and they're looking for a feminist photographer, how do you think that affects your artwork as far as kind of the way that you approach a wedding? Like you were saying, like in a non-traditional, non-only bride focused way. Like how does that affect you artistically?
For me, I think it focuses my attention on interactions more than like things, and also more it like expands my viewpoint beyond just the bride, because most of the like wedding narratives we hear are really super bride centric, and so I just try to kind of like erase that from my mind, and I try to give like as much attention to the groom if there's a groom, or like equal attention to family members or people who are guests or people in the wedding party. I just try to like be aware of all of the dynamics a little bit more, like I think that when we talk about weddings, a lot of times people are focused on this like fairy tale idea of happily ever after, best day of your life and da-da-da. And like, it's definitely fun. And I think it's a great party. And often it's like the biggest party you're ever going to throw, but it's really just the starting point for your marriage. And so like, to me, it's more important to get like the dynamics between all of the people that are there than just like lifting up a bride and making her look angelic and virginal or whatever. It's more like, how is she interacting with her sister, who she sometimes really loves, but sometimes it's really tense, and like, are they going to have a tender moment, and is that going to be like something really special in their relationship going forward, or is it like a groom who is having a heart-to-heart with his dad, who had like previously not really been that into the fact that his son is gay, and now he's sort of softening, like maybe I'm capturing that more so than just like this idea that the couple is just like to be held up on the pedestal all day. It's really like a more holistic view of the event.
I love that. I actually met Dawn, who introduced us, doing weddings. We both had done wedding planning and wedding facilitation. And so much of the photography is the bride being like, this is the last day I'm going to ever look this hot. So, like, get it together, take this picture. I squeeze into this damn dress. Yes, my groom is a damn prop. You know what I mean? Like, it really was that way. And the groom just stand there and like, all right, you stand there, get out of the frame, come back in.
Yeah, I mean, there are literally photos in like wedding world, in like Martha Stewart weddings or wherever, that's like the groom's not even looking at the camera, or his face isn't even in the frame, and it's just all focused in on her fake eyelashes, which are beautiful, and her perfect makeup, also beautiful, but just like it's not the point.
Yeah.
I
love that you can look back at a picture that you would take and they would not see, oh God, that's when I was hot, but dang, like, yeah, this started out in love, where from what I hear, marriages, they're work.
Oh, yeah.
Expectations are high. So if you can look back at your pictures and see all the love and the people there that you stood up in front of and said, hey, me and this person are partners now, and we want your help. And you can be reminded of that and not when you look sexier.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing. And that is huge in a marriage, I'm sure.
I agree. That's what I'm hearing.
Really, how did you get started in this whole feminist world? Like, did you come out of the womb ready to go?
I think that I did. I'm the oldest of 3 children. My mom is like a huge badass, and we have a really good relationship. When I was younger, she just was very like supportive of me and quick to call out double standards. And there's a feminist quote unquote click moment that I had kind of in retrospect. I realized it was a click moment, a story that I love to tell. When I was in 2nd grade, there was another boy in my class who kept on getting called on during math class. Actually, he and I got sent to the like 1 grade higher for math, and so the teacher would always call on him and always call on boys and never call on me. And I was really, really upset about it. So I talked to my mom about it. I swear that this was definitely in 2nd grade. I talked to my mom and I was like, I'm really upset about this, and it's not fair. I'm a Libra, so I'm like all about fairness. And she's like, okay, well, my mom was like, okay, well, let's write her maybe we could write her a note just like letting her know how you feel, etc. And so, like, without even asking my mom, I wrote the teacher this note that she found recently. It was so funny. And it was like, dear Ms. So-and-so, I don't appreciate it when you call on Nicholas and the boys more than you call on the girls. It's very rude. And when you like act like, she used to say something about him being like my brother. We had like a sibling rivalry, and I was like, he is not my sibling, and girls know just as much about math. It was just like this really sassy letter. And the teacher brought it to the principal, and I had to go to the principal's office. And they brought my mom in, and my mom was like, I don't see a problem here. And they were like, well, she can't, this is very, I can't remember the words, like this is sassy or this is too aggressive. And my mom was like, my mom was like, you know what? If she were a boy, you'd be praising her for being assertive. And because she's a girl, you're saying that she's a whiny bitch. And that's not fair. That's a double standard. And like, that was kind of her philosophy raising me. So I've always sort of been very like strong-willed and very open about my opinions. And I studied women's studies in college after I dropped out of architecture school, because that was just sort of where my interests were. And then it kind of went on from there, just doing feminist stuff and organizing. And I actually went to feminist camp when I was a senior in college. So that's kind of how I got looped into this, because I was definitely one of those people in college where I had no idea what I was going to do after college. I didn't really know what people did after college, to be honest. Like, my dad went to a 2-year school. My mom went to FIT, and then she became a mom. So, like, she didn't really have a, quote unquote professional career until after all the kids were gone from home. And like, I didn't really know a lot of people in my life who had gone to college and had professional careers. So I was kind of like, what are you, I know I'm supposed to go to college. Like, I got that part down, but like, what do I do
then
after that? Yeah.
Is there a line I stand in and they dole out jobs? Or
Right, exactly. Like, so where are the jobs? Exactly. And with women's studies, everyone is like, what are you going to do with a women's studies major? And it was a really big departure from architecture, where it's like, if you go to architecture school, you become an architect. That's pretty like linear. Not everybody, but at least
yeah, we're
path.
film majors, so we get it. Like,
yeah, when people
we
are
were
like, what are you even going to do with that? And it gets into your head, and you're like, I don't know. What am I going to do with it? Be a nanny? Yeah, no.
I know. So the first feminist camp was in 2006. Yeah. So what year did you attend?
2007. No, 2008.
Okay. Cool.
And I wanted to know too, like when you first heard that phrase, feminist camp, like what did you think? Because I'm thinking awesome chicks together, like no bras, hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. Sold. It used to be, so funny enough, it started as a January term class through a women's college that's in my hometown. I didn't go to this women's college, but it started as a class for them. So they had like a faculty contact, and then people from their school went to this trip, and then it was done as a class. So I actually feel like it was called something else. It wasn't called Feminist Camp at the time. It was called like Feminist like intensive or something different. And I remember finding the website. It was like real old school, one of those websites where it's like an image that has all the words, like you can't even copy it. Like it was really old school. And it was like, and this program is for students at Hollins University. And I was like, well, shit, I don't go there, but like I've heard of it. It's in my state. So I emailed the people in charge, and I was like, hi, I'm Carly. I really want to go to this camp. I understand it's just for people who go to Hollins. I don't go to Hollins, but like I'm from Roanoke. It's the same like place. Is there anything we can do? Can we like work this out? And they were like, yeah, totally. You can come. So I sort of like crashed this program that was not even designed for me. And it was really meant to be like part of a larger course about applied feminism, So I just did that.
I just went there. I joined them. That's how a lot of things happen. You crash a party because you have a heart feeling and heart led, and that was revealed to you, this website, this dusty website.
Exactly. A heart feeling is exactly how I would describe it. Like I was reading about it, and it was like 5 days in New York City, and like get to meet all these people, and like we're gonna demystify like what applied feminism really looks like outside of college. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to go to this thing. And like, what's the harm in asking them? What are they gonna like? If they say no, whatever.
That's our motto. Is like, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, which sometimes when you really want something, that's a lot. But when you know, and you walk towards it, and that's usually the best, biggest, coolest things.
Yeah, it was amazing. I learned so much. I remember sitting in a session and realizing that like when a nonprofit is talking about the positions in their organization, and one of them is one of the areas is called development, that is fundraising. Like I didn't even know that, like I didn't even know that organization, nonprofit has an executive director, but a company has a CEO. Like there were basic things that I didn't know about. And I just remember feeling like a veil had been lifted on all this work. And I realized that there's so many different roles that you can take, even within one organization, not to mention the fact that there's like hundreds upon hundreds of organizations and companies that are doing feminist work, but like there's different roles inside that. Like I didn't just have to think, okay, well, I'm just going to go and try to be like an assistant,
Right. What did you have an idea of like what you wanted to do? Because I imagine at this incarnation of feminist camp, there's people like, I have this idea, I want to run, but I need to learn the structure and, like you said, the names of the people even doing the thing and fundraising. Did you just know that you wanted to work in that world, or did you have like something you wanted to do, like a program you wanted to put together?
At that time, I really thought the only thing that I felt like I knew for sure, which like, when you're about to graduate college, you really don't know anything for sure. But I knew that I wanted to have like a different day-to-day lifestyle. Like I didn't want to do the same thing every day. And actually, when I left college, when I graduated, I took like a little detour, which isn't really important. And then I started my first quote unquote real job at a local youth center for queer youth. And that like totally ticked the box of not being the same thing every day. Because while we had like open hours for kids to come in and like every day we had the same like open hours, but like one day it would be like a facilitated support discussion around like families, or sometimes I'd just like play Wii with queer teens. Like it was very different. So that really ticked all the boxes for me in terms of like what I wanted my day-to-day life to be like. But ultimately it wasn't really the right fit. I wasn't getting enough money to pay my student loans, to be honest. And I had this terrible boss. Oh God, he was awful. And he was like oddly kind of sexist, which I remember being so struck by. I was like, are you really telling me to clean the kitchen? Like, you're telling me to clean the kitchen? I'm the only woman who works here. And like,
well, at least he didn't tell you to do it barefoot. I mean, that's the only thing that's sexist,
I mean,
right?
yes, exactly.
Take off your shoes.
Yeah. And to be totally honest, I kind of like thank this guy internally every day for showing me what a shitty boss is, you know? Like I was like, at the time I was like, oh, I'm so grateful to even have a job, because everyone was telling you like, be grateful that you have a job. But then like I kind of realized like he was being shitty. And I didn't have to put up with that. Like, I told him I needed a raise, and he was like, oh, sweetie, we can't all retire to the lake like our parents did. And I was like, I'm not trying to retire anywhere. I'm 22 years old, and I need to pay my fucking student loan bill, you asshole. So anyway.
You know what? You nailed it on the head. Like, learning those lessons, like having a shitty boss, or I had a shitty job, and I had like a nervous breakdown sitting in front of a computer every day. Like, I was like, I can't sit. Like, you learn those things. And I graduated, I think we graduated around the same time. Like, the recession was booming, or it was like starting to get real tight squeezed. Like, it was kind of freaky there for a second when I was like 23, 24, when the recession hit. And I thought, I have to take anything. But, and that did not work out for me, taking anything. Yeah.
And I think it's a narrative that especially affects women. Like, we should be grateful to our bosses because they're being so benevolent and giving us a job. Like, fuck that. We're actually bringing a lot of value to the table. And we often do a lot of emotional and other unpaid work when we're in a position. And like, that needs to be recognized and treated accordingly. And like, this whole like old school condescending patriarchal bullshit, even when it's coming from like a gay man, is still not okay.
Still not okay.
Agree. I think that's something that people a lot of times misunderstand. Like, and I'm sure you'll resonate with this when you're trying to talk about or educate someone about like, what is the patriarchy? You know, what does it mean to be in kind of like a male-dominated society? It isn't just like straight men or like straight white men. It's everyone. Like, there's so many women who still have these attitudes. There's so many like gay or queer people who still totally have these attitudes. It's about like, these attitudes come from our society. They don't just come, they're not just implanted into men only. And like, oh, men have them. You know, it's like, that's why I think people are always surprised. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many women who are against women too. I'm like, well, yeah, because they grew up in the same society, you know?
Right. Like, we live in a cult. But exactly. It's just the same as how, like, all white people are a little bit racist. And even some black people can have internalized racism, or people of color can have internalized racism. We're brought up in a fucked up, racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic society. And like, the best we can do is just work on it every single day and try to be aware and try to call each other out on it. Like, eventually I quit this job because I was like, I can't deal with you. I'm doing amazing work with these kids, but like, it's not right for me to have to be putting myself in this position every day to be treated poorly by someone who should be an ally. Like, it's not okay, you know? So,
but then that brings up the question, you got bills to pay. And when I feel like, when people want to do heart-led work, and, you know, me and Amanda work with plant medicine and meditation, this is big stuff. It's we believe, able to change the world. But then, when, you know, you don't just get a paycheck coming to your mailbox or to your bank account all the time. So that's the disconnect. Like, how does one bridge this funky little gap? Yeah.
And well, so that's like one of the biggest theses of Feminist Camp is like, how can we expose these really passionate, usually young people, sometimes there's people of like lots of different ages, but it's mostly like college seniors / young professional types. Like, how can we expose them to all these possibilities? Because a lot of people are in college, or they're just out of college, or they're college age, and they are really passionate and they know how to like organize, or they do a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff, or they volunteer with Planned Parenthood or wherever it is. And in their minds, they're just like, okay, well, like, I guess I'm going to work for Planned Parenthood. And like, that's the only option. You know, they don't realize that there's all these other, and I don't want to make people feel like they're stupid for not knowing, but like, I didn't know until I went to camp that like, okay, well, when you talk about reproductive justice, some people are doing reproductive justice work through Planned Parenthood and direct services. Some people are lawyers who are like taking on cases where women are being like prosecuted for things that they did while pregnant, even though they wanted to have babies. You know, they're still being prosecuted, and they didn't choose like abortion. They chose to become mothers, but they're still being affected by like bullshit laws. Or maybe there's people who are doing political work and they're advocating, or like they're the Guttmacher Institute and they're doing studies around like women's health. There's so many, like, I can literally just sit here for the next 30 minutes and list all these organizations that we meet with at camp, but like, it's just so mind-blowing how big the movement really is. You just have to know where to look, and you just have to be able to see inside a lot of these places. Like some places don't even use the word feminist, or don't even like easily identify as like, you know, anti-racist, but they do anti-racist work. Or there's a lot of, it's just hard to, I think it's hard as an individual to collect all of those examples and see them. So for Feminist Camp, we curate all of that and we bring people to the table, and then we take the campers and we show them, okay, well, like, here's just a very tiny tip of the iceberg of how these people are living their lives, paying their rent, and doing feminist work.
Wow. And so the campers, I imagine, have a set of obviously have a set of strengths. Are they coming to the table with like, I like working with, you know, teens. I have a law degree. And then they're kind of connecting, or is it kind of like we said, like a heart-led thing, and they're like, that sounds good to me? Or are you guys matching and pairing them, or how does the like connection then go from there?
Everybody comes from everyone starts in kind of a different place. There are definitely some people who are like, I'm already in grad school to become a social worker. What are some ways that I can do social work, but in a feminist way? And then there are some people who are like, hey, I'm already in school to be a social worker. How can I do work in a social work way? Oh, wait, actually, after going to this camp, I'd really prefer to do this other thing. Like, it's really, people come from all different places in their feminist trajectories. We try to, so each day of the camp is centered around a theme loosely, because all the themes like sort of overlap. So like we do a day on like women in incarceration, but then that also is touching on reproductive justice, and that's also touching on like art, and you know, there's a lot of overlap. But so many times I would say their campers will write like in their feedback forms at the end, I came into this and I really didn't know much about women in incarceration, and like, or I came into this and philanthropy wasn't really something that interested me, and now after being at camp, I realized that this is something I really care about. So the only like commonality really, I would say, is coming in with an open mind and an open heart and like a curiosity about what's out there.
Absolutely. And is this like is it like an overnight camp? So you're having workshops or connecting? I imagine there's speakers.
Yes, it's so packed. So we do a week-long program in New York twice a year, and it's from Sunday night until Saturday morning. Most of the days we run from like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. And then sometimes we'll do like an evening event here and there. We're also doing a week-long program in Seattle this summer. Ooh. It's our second week-long program in Seattle. Yeah, Seattle is such a great space to be doing this. And like, especially with all the technology that's happening there, there's also a ton of like immigrant rights stuff happening there. There's a ton of environmental stuff happening there.
We're locked in, baby.
Like y'all have everything going on. It's amazing.
Animal rights, turtle rights, bicyclist rights.
Exactly. Cannabis industry stuff. And
cannabis, right?
You guys are being like really anti-small bagels, and I just really feel
we got
fighting
small
for small
bagels.
bagels.
Right. We got that.
Small bagels?
There's something going on in Seattle where they only have small bagels. I can't explain it. You go to the bagel place, and it's like a third of the size of a bagel you've ever seen. But it's just like it's Seattle, and like that's what they have.
I'm against that. That's -1 point for Seattle.
The big bagel lobby's coming at you.
Like big bagels are go home. Go big bagel or go home.
Big bagel. It's very true though. There is such a passion for social justice and a passion for passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing Seattle this summer, and then actually in April, which is very close to now, we're prototyping a camp in the Bay Area, and that's going to be a weekend camp. And we're just finalizing the schedule now, but there's there's repro justice stuff in there. There's some stuff about immigration. We're doing some sessions on women in music. It's like, so when we set out to these camps, for San Francisco, it's the first time that we're doing a camp out there. So we're doing it a shortened version. It's like a Thursday night, Friday during the day, Saturday during the day, and then Sunday morning, little like closing brunch. And we set out to do this, and we have like a site director who's like on the ground in the area, and they're compiling a list of organizations that might be good, and we're compiling a list of organizations that might be good. And like we reach out to all these people, and the response is so overwhelmingly positive, and everybody wants to meet our campers, and everybody wants to share their work. And then we're like, okay, but realistically, we can probably fit 10 organizations in, and we have like 40 that are interested in doing it. So it's a little hard to like have to winnow it down, but it also feels really positive because like as long as we can get campers there, which we're actually doing a really good job of this time, and I think there's only a couple spots left, but as long as we can get the campers there, then we know that we'll be able to do it another time and sort of like grow and expand and sort of loop in more and more organizations that are doing amazing work.
That's so exciting that you have that many people on top of, like we have space for 10, we're getting 40. Like that's such for any, business or company or organization to say is super exciting. Yeah. So
well, I'm always a little bit, I think for me as like a person who runs this camp, I learned so much every single time we do it. Because I'm learning from these organizations that are doing this incredible, like groundbreaking work in real time. And like, I'm learning about new efforts and new strategies. And then I'm talking to the campers who are like, oh, we're doing this on our campus, or we're doing that on our campus, or I have this club in my community that I started. And it's just like a really energizing experience, even for like a unquote, like camp veteran like me. Like I've been doing this for almost 10 years. And I still, every single time, I get so much out of it. Like, I'm never like, oh, I've heard all this before, whatever,
That's awesome. So, Carly, I have a question for you. That's going to, like, switch it up a little bit. But what is, and this may affect, the next few camps that you guys have or the things that you bring up. But what is kind of your take and your opinion on everything that's been happening kind of in the United States and around the world in the last 6 months to a year with the Me Too movement, with how Hollywood's been affected, and where do you see kind of like, the positive and or negative sides of this movement?
That's an awesome question. I think even going further back than Me Too, but like all the way to Trump's election, like our first camp after Trump was elected was in January, and it was our biggest camp. We had 29 people, which for us is really, really big. Usually we're around like 16 people. So we almost doubled our number of campers. So this like growing awareness has been really good for our camp. I think a part of me as like an ardent feminist who I feel like I've been talking about sexual assault until I was like blue in the face since I was in college. It's like a little bittersweet almost that now it's like this popular thing and everyone's like, oh yeah, sexual assault. Wow. Yeah. We should like talk about this because women are really mistreated. And like, I'm sometimes like, yeah, duh, that's what I've fucking been saying for 10 years.
Is it kind of like when a band gets really popular and you're like, I've listened to their first 8 albums. Hello.
Yes. And then you're that person being like, I listened to them like before they were famous, but like, and I don't want to be that way. And also like, I don't want to take away from the fact that like, a lot more people are really putting themselves out there in a way that they didn't feel safe to before, which is like a huge paradigm shift in our culture. And I think really important. There's always more work to be done. It's not, there's always more than just the hashtag and more than sharing your story, even though sharing your story can be transformative. We haven't done like the numbers to see how many folks who are coming to camp have been like directly related to this new wave of like feminist awareness. But I'm sure there's people out there. And I also think the thing about camp is like you get this like professional training element or this sort of like job assistance element or that kind of stuff. But you also get this intangible thing that the campers are always talking about being like the most valuable thing is just like being in a dedicated space where everyone around you is not only like friendly to sexual assault survivors or like not only kind of a safe space, but like a feminist space, a determinedly feminist space is really, really awesome. Special and really neat.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You guys, sorry.
We're all sorry.
We're still working on our women's issues, and I'm so sorry. I'm so
exactly.
To cut you off, was wondering like, so we think of feminist camp, of course. I'm thinking like I'm seeing women, but have you seen? What's the man side like? Do you see a lot of men coming in? What's it like for them in camp? Is it?
We haven't had like a cisgendered man in a while. Usually, I would say over the course of like the 20 or so sessions that I've done, maybe half have had one cis man attending. Usually they're a queer person. Like usually they have some other like step away from what your typical like cis hetero white guy. Yeah. We've never had an issue with like men kind of taking up too much space in the program or anything like that. I think it has to do with like the way we establish our community guidelines and the way that we like encourage them to listen to each other and practice like make space, take space, and like those sorts of things. I don't really know. I almost feel like that's like not in our scope of work, like making feminism more accessible to like cis white dudes or, it's not really like part of it, like it's meant to kind of just be dedicated to people who have spent a lot of time, like we were saying, a lot of time in a society that is like designed and built for not them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally understand. But I mean, guys have the right to just, get to know everything and go wherever they want. So.
I mean, I do feel a huge lack when we're just missing that straight white man opinion.
I know.
What we haven't heard from today?
Exactly. Is there another guest that you could bring on? This is very unbalanced. We need someone to come in here and play devil's advocate, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just tell you guys where you're going wrong, where you're getting it. You're not quite.
If we do.
If someone can mansplain feminism to me, that would be real great.
One of the most.
I saw this TED talk by Jackson Katz, and I think it's into like violence against women. It's a men's issue, and it completely like rewired my whole thinking of things because even my way of thinking about violence against women was backwards and was totally dictated by, I grew up in a military family in a Christian military family where like there was definitely a very clear man as the head of the household situation going on there. Mm-hmm. You say that to someone, you say it to a woman and they're like, what is it? Oh yeah, it is. It it rewires everyone. It's such a big thing. And so I always, for me, you know, I feel called to like sit with dudes a lot of time and like lady-splain or explain kind of what's going on and give them that short circuit moment. And as a way of, and I don't know if I'm like crafting this like backdoor way into feminist work through this, but as like a part of my feminism, of expressing like how I want to move forward, because we work in like the meditation kind of bleeds into yoga. There's a lot of women around, and it seems we're all on the same page, but then you kind of go outside of our bubble, and there's still dudes walking around that haven't heard the news, you know, that don't know where this is going and don't know where they fit in any of this.
Yeah. I think that there's room within feminist movement for all of these roles, you know? Like I can't be that person. I'm not patient enough. I'm so spoiled by all my work. Like I know I never have to spend time around men when I don't want to. And like, it makes my patience very, very short. And that's just like who, you know, it's my personality, and I feel like I found my spot. But like, when you're a person who has the patience to do that, then you're activating your feminism in the best way possible, because you're doing that work and I'm doing this other work. And like you know, my sister is a really kind of in the streets activist type, and she's the one who's getting arrested all the time. And like, that's her version. You know, like everyone's got their own kind of like role to play in this like feminist revolution that we're in.
Yeah, totally.
And I believe, and that's important. Like everyone does have a role to play. Like we're doing this together, so everyone figure out, get in where you fit in.
And you know, like we're feminists, so we're really good at criticism. And I think that, you know, that's something that, especially when we're talking about like politics and left versus right, like that's something the left really struggles with, is we're always like trying to get the perfect thing, and we want it to be perfect, and we want everything to be as like inclusive as it can be and as right as it can be. And there's a lot of different like interest groups that we're trying to balance, and a lot of different issues that we care about. And like, we are so good at being critical of each other, and we're so good at like really sniping down like other people's feminism. And like, you know, sometimes with feminist camp, people get mad because we charge money to attend camp, and you know, we do sliding scale and we have financial aid, but like they're like, well, this should be free. And you know, that's not our role. Our role is a different experience. There's definitely free stuff that you can do within feminism, but like our role is to do it this way so that we could pay our employees, and like this can be a business that's a different kind of business model. Like some people have nonprofit bookstores. Some people have for-profit bookstores. They're both doing a good thing. And we need to like, I think, make space in this movement for people to like do things in different ways, you know?
We face that a lot, this whole like, okay, well, it's good work to help people, shouldn't get paid. And it's like, that's just the thing.
I know.
This is what you should get paid to do.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I would love to burn capitalism down, you know? Like, fuck capitalism. Capitalism is a hot mess, and it ruins people's lives. But like, I still need to pay my bills, so I can't like just burn it all down on my own.
I know. Some people want to too. I really want to. Yeah. the woman that I work for here at the retreat center, you know, she talks to people a lot about people who are involved in anything in like the spiritual community or healing, or you know, anything along those lines. Like, we all struggle with this guilt of making money, or like how much it's worth, or like what is, you know, sitting and listening to someone and healing them through like listening, like what is that worth, right? And she said that she struggled with that for a long time, is like, oh, you know, it's spiritual, so I shouldn't be making money. And then she realized, like, wait a minute, all the spiritual people are the ones that should have all the money. Like, you know, we're the ones that know what to do with it. You're like, not the people that have it. So like, in fact, like, we really should be getting, like, I want all the money because I trust that I'm going to like do good things with it, you know? So having that shift is like a really awesome mental shift.
Yeah, it's so important. And like, there are ways to do it that are sensitive to making sure that you're like breaking down economic barriers for people who really want to partake, or like, you know, that you're doing it in a way that's not a complete like corporate evil system. But like, the fact is that we live inside capitalism, and if we're equating like giving money to things that we value, then why are we afraid of accepting money for doing our valuable work?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's funny because that's like a combination of like, you know, getting your intrinsic value, like your value as a woman, your value as a teacher, your value as a leader, your value as, you know, this type of work that isn't always valued. Like there's so many things that you have to come up against when you're trying to assess your value in this space that it's huge. Like I'm still working on that, you know, right now.
Yeah, I feel you for sure.
So Carly, if somebody were to want to get involved, like how do they jump, like what's the first step? And maybe it's not even like looking at Feminist Camp, which we're going to put all the links to that, but like how does one like start walking towards their own expression of feminism and working in this world and getting their bills paid still? Like where's a great first step?
I think, well, obviously I would recommend going to camp.
Feminist Camp, straight up, got it.
Like I said, we have the short version, we have the long version, we have the East Coast version, we have the West Coast version, we have a lot of different versions. There's even one for high school students. Like we've got a lot of programs. If you're somebody who is pretty like secure in your feminism and you're just trying to refine like what you're trying to do, I would say talk to as many people as you can. Find people whose work you really admire and just tell them that you really admire their work. Don't even start with asking them for stuff or asking them to spend time with you, but just like send people an email and be like, your podcast really resonated with me, or like your work on whatever event like was really incredible and I appreciate that. And then like try to build relationships with people and get to know like how did they get to where they are? What sort of mistakes have they made along the way that they learned from? And like, you know, start to think about your own life in terms of a winding, circuitous, up and down, left and right path, and kind of get away from this idea that we're supposed to be sort of on like an upward ladder of very clear steps, because nobody's life is actually like that. Nope. We're really always looking for donations to Feminist Camp to support our scholarship fund. Because like I said, we believe that the work that we do is valuable and the work that our speakers and camp presenters do is really valuable. And we want people to be able to attend even if they maybe are experiencing some kind of financial barrier. Or just like reach out. Maybe you have a really cool project that you're working on and you think Feminist Camp would be like a good partner. We're really trying to grow this year and next year to a bunch of different places. So yeah, connect with people. I guess if I had to like kind of simmer it down to one like crystallized thing, it would be try to connect with people and show appreciation and love for people and curiosity, and just reach out with sincerity, and it'll, I think, really help bring you where you need to go. Amen.
And how can someone get a Feminist Camp up in their neighborhood? Because I'm good to go. We got Seattle.
I know. Right now, it's just like emailing me and telling me about what your community is like. Mostly our site directors are in charge of helping us curate the like curriculum for the camp, and then we do the like camper recruitment. But people can email me. My email's Carly, Carly, at soapboxinc.com, soapboxinc.com. Soapbox is sort of the parent organization of Feminist Camp. Or you can, I'd say emailing me is the best thing. Or you can follow us on Instagram at Feminist Camp.
And it's feministcamp.com. We'll have all these links up on our site and on our Facebook too, so people can get in touch. This has been awesome. And thank you for what you do, talking about appreciation. Thank you for your journey and for the last many years doing this work and for this badass thing you guys have built. This is big.
It's really
big. We've been looking over the site and we're like, this is awesome. It's an honor that you're here to talk with us. And thank you for your energy. It's a really exciting, bubbly energy. It's
and also,
great.
if I want to tell you, Carly, if I ever do get married, which it's still up in the air, I have been looking at your work. It's super beautiful. I love that it's not this kind of traditional, like, it's all about the bride and then all these, like, fucking other people that happen to be there. which is like so many weddings. I just really love it. It's super beautiful. You have an awesome creative style. And I look forward to all of the work that you're doing now and in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to meet you all when I go to Seattle in the summer.
Yes! It's going to be great. Meeting of the minds, baby. We'll have
Thank
mini
you
bagels
guys for joining us.
No,
it's been
bagels,
so much fun.
regular size bagels only.
Big bagels only. I'll find the biggest bagels in Seattle and we'll have a chat. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Take care, guys. See you guys later. Thanks for listening. Woo.